Good evening, everybody. We are on Facebook Live, so welcome to all of our friends who are joining us. And for all of you who are here, we have some new faces. Welcome. And we're looking forward. Hopefully you'll enjoy and you'll come back again. Tonight's class, I want to dedicate who were terribly injured yesterday in a terrorist attack in Jerusalem, along with all of the other Jews across the world who need a healing. Hashem should send them a refuah. Okay, with that, I would like to begin tonight by just adding one quick story to finish off last week's topic of truth. So I think it's important when we talk about truth to remember that truth is in every area. In every area of life, you need to have truth, and including in business, obviously, but in every area, it is critical for a person to make sure that they're being truthful and honest. And I left last week, I don't think I said this story, but I wanted to share it for sure. Did I share it last week? I think I did at the end. I think at the end of the class, there was Pinchas ben Yair. Did I share the story? Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, truth is not something that is negotiable. Truth is something that needs to always be a constant. It needs to be something that we're always focused on ensuring that we don't play with it and then it disappears. So, we're going to move straight into humility now. The trait of humility is very, very misunderstood. It's misunderstood in that you have many, many people who think that humility means that I'm a nothing. And I need to make sure that everybody thinks that I'm a nothing, and then I'm humble. Humble means I have no identity. Humble means, right, let's go around the table like we do many weeks, and I want everyone to give a definition to what humility is. We'll start right here. What is?
Selfless.
Selfless.
Do unto others as you want done to you.
Do unto others as you want done to yourself. Very good.
Not to be self-indulgent.
Not to be self-indulgent.
It's the complete opposite of arrogance.
The opposite of arrogance. Now you agree? Yes?
Willing to listen to what other people have to say about stuff.
Okay, so letting other people talk.
What other people.
Knowing that there's always place to grow.
Okay.
That's what I was going. I'm not joking. Knowing that we can always attain more.
Okay, there we go. So it's very interesting that humility we always think means making myself smaller, but the truth is that true humility means that we know exactly where we stand. Humility means I don't need to make myself into something so small, but rather I know exactly where I do stand. Okay, and we're going to see. We're going to elaborate on this of plenty tonight to understand more about this trait of humility. Humility doesn't mean that you make yourself small. On the contrary, humility means that you understand exactly who you are, what your character traits are, what your gifts from God are, but you also know that they're a gift. One of the big mistakes that people make is that they think, oh, you know why I'm successful? Because I'm smart. You know why I'm successful? Because I know how to run a good business. You know why I'm successful? Because, and people can give their own reasons as to what they think is the cause for that quality. But the truth is, a person needs to know exactly where that talent, skill, ability came from. Okay, we're going to see that shortly. But as you saw at the beginning of the class tonight, we gave out the Midah worksheet. Now the Midah worksheet is going to be, if you can use it to journal in the back, you can use it to write some notes during class, but it's really meant to be a worksheet for after class, for the end of class, the last 5 minutes of class, we'll give everyone a chance to take down notes and to redefine, because we have everyone came here with a different idea of what humility means. We're going to hopefully leave with a very coordinated idea of what humility means. All right, the clear definition of what humility is, and then we're going to introspect as to where we're holding with humility. How do I grade myself? And then we're going to put practical work on this trait. What do I want to accomplish with working on this trait? How much do I want to succeed? What tools can I use currently in my current structure of my traits to put forward on this trait, to assist me with my humility? And then step 4 is going to be accepting something on myself, that I'm going to do such and such, this and this amount of times a day. Okay? Of this, you're welcome to email me, and I will email you the PDF of this. Those of you who are here who want a copy for later, you're welcome to email me, and I will happily send you that information. Okay. So, as we discussed previously, there are traits that bring us together, and there are traits that separate us. Anger is a trait that distances people. Arrogance is a trait, as we'll discuss in a couple of weeks. Arrogance is a trait that, again, doesn't bring people together because nobody likes someone who's arrogant, so it pulls people apart. And all of the traits that we're discussing, we're going to define them at the beginning, whether or not they're traits that have qualities that bring people together, or whether they have components that pull people apart. Humility is a trait that brings people together. Everybody loves someone who's humble. Okay? And we're going to try to define from the Torah people who had humility and learn from them what humility means. Okay, so humility is defined by our relationship with our Creator. The way we have our relationship with God is the way we can understand our own humility, and we'll see that shortly. So we know that that the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth, King of the universe, chose who to take the Jewish people out of Egypt, to give the people the Torah? Moses. Why?
Because he was humble.
Because it says in the Torah, Moses was humble more than any other man. Moses was humble more than any other man. Now, it's interesting that it says that in the Torah. Who wrote the Torah? Well, Moses wrote it. He actually wrote it, but through the word of God. So he transcribed the words of God. God says, and Moses is the most humble man. Right? You imagine that, right? You're right. Imagine God tells you to write that, and you're like, I can't write that about myself, right? How can I write that about myself, right? But Moshe was chosen to give the Torah in the merit of his humility. He was the most humble because that's why he was a leader. But he was the most humble because he was the closest to God. The closer you are to God, the more humble you are by definition. By definition, the more humble you will be. Okay? The humility essentially defined the closeness of his relationship. So, the closer one truly is with Hashem, the less chance they have to be arrogant. Right? When a person is holy, when a person is close to God, they realize that it's all a gift. I have nothing to brag about. I have nothing to feel so arrogant about. I realize it's all a gift. Right? Everything I have is a result of the gifts from God. So where am I to start taking pride? For something I did nothing for it. And we'll see soon more about this. The closer I am to the true source of the light, the more I realize that I'm just a mere reflection of it and not the light of my own. All right, so let's give an example. This explains why the moon was punished. What was the moon punished? Anybody knows why the moon was punished?
Complaining about being smaller than the sun?
Well, no. First, there were two equal lights, the sun and the moon. They were both equal. And God says, right, the moon complained, and it says, you can't have two lights. You can't have two chefs in the kitchen, right? You can't have two lights lighting up the world. So God says, fine, make yourself smaller. Right? You complained, you're going to be the smaller one. It thought that the equal light that the sun and the moon shared originally was their own, and therefore complained, we can't have two leaders. Its punishment to reflect the light of the sun explains the humility it lacked. It didn't realize that from the get-go the light was a reflection of the Almighty. Understand? It didn't realize that the only light that it was really able to provide to begin with was from God. You don't understand that? You're going to have to learn now by being a reflection of the sun. So it was sort of like a midah keneged midah, an act for an act, an eye for an eye. You didn't show your humility that you're a reflection of God's light. Now you're going to have to be smaller, minimized, and become a reflection of the light of the sun. Right? Now, just so that you understand, it was never meant to reflect its own light, always reflecting the light of the Creator, Hashem's light. That means that there was a very severe punishment. When you walk outside tonight and you see the beautiful moon, right? You know why that moon, you know what that moon is shining? The light that it's glowing is a reflection of the sun. So now, just so that you understand the mercy that God has, okay, so now it got punished, but we still feel bad for the moon. Right? Look how it's being only the reflection of the sun. The sun all day is bright, it's shining, glowing. And what's with the moon? He got shamed that now he's just a reflection of the sun. So do you know that we don't make a blessing on the sun except for once every 28 years? How often do we make a blessing on the moon? Once a month. Every month we sort of we comfort the moon, saying, don't worry, you're a little bit smaller, but look who we bless more often. Right? We give a blessing to you to comfort it. So that's just a side note to know that even though it needed to learn that lesson of humility, we still feel bad that it was taken down and diminished to be only a reflection of the sun, and we give it that special blessing. But our soul, our traits, also come from Hashem. And God blew into man's nostrils the soul of life. Vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim. Our essence is reflecting Hashem's light, Hashem's traits. The traits that we have within us, whether it's positive traits or negative traits. Now, God is perfect in all His traits. We only have a piece of God, so we don't have perfection. Our job throughout our lifetime is to attain perfection in our traits. But we have to recognize that our traits are a reflection of God. So if a person does attain perfection, still remember you're a reflection of God. It fits perfectly with what we always talk about, that Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is a relationship. Judaism is a relationship. Every individual needs to grow and nurture their own growth and their own relationship with God. There's no pre-engineered growth in Judaism. Do this, then do that, then do this. Every person needs to find their essence, their core, and connect to God and elevate themselves in an organic way that's befitting their spiritual composite. Humility means to understand where I stand. Once I know what my gifts are, once I know what my positive traits are, my negative traits are, I know exactly who I am, and I recognize that it's all a gift from God, that's a good thing. Now, one of the things, I remember when we were learning in yeshiva, and we were talking about we were talking about identifying traits. So we got to a bunch of us went to my grandfather and asked him, isn't that arrogant? I'm going to say, I'm an 8 out of 10 in kindness, or I'm a 9 out of 10 in humility, or I'm a 7 out of 10. You have over here on your meter worksheet, you'll be able to score yourself, right? So you'll be able to score yourself. But isn't that arrogant if you think that you're so good in a certain trait? So the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're obligated to know your gifts. You're obligated to know your gifts. You need to know the gifts that God gave you. Now, as parents, our responsibility is to identify those qualities and flaws to our children, to bring it to light. Because imagine this. Imagine if a child grows up not knowing that he has a bad temper, because his parents never wanted to break it into him. They never wanted to tell him, right? Imagine how much challenge he's going to face throughout his lifetime because he doesn't know that he has such a negative trait. Meaning, a person, if the parents would only bring them to that, bring him to the awareness that they have this negative trait, it would have helped them so much to work on it. Same thing with positive traits. A person has a quality, they have to know and be trained how to use that quality properly. Okay, there has to be a balance. A person has to know how to utilize it properly. I'll give you an example. Someone who has tremendous kindness, they get kind to everyone. Well, it's great. But kindness could come at the expense of your own family. You're being kind with the entire world. What's with your own family? You're neglecting your own obligations. So, it's not enough to have the qualities, but you have to know the qualities. It's critical that a person know what their qualities are. And the more a person identifies with those traits, the more they're able to work on them, and they're able to advance them and gain more control of them. And that's what we're going to try to do, not only in this class, but in all of the classes, work on a method in how to take these traits, identify them, and then put them into action and excel, hopefully, with these traits. Each one of us were created by the Almighty. We were all created by God. It says that, it's a very interesting thing. We have 2 tablets that were given to Moses at Mount Sinai, given to the Jewish people. What were the 2 tablets? One had 5 commandments, and the other had 5 commandments. One had the commandments of between God and man, and the other is between man and man. But if you look at commandment number 5, which is on the side of between man and God, you'll see that there's one trait that seems out of order, doesn't belong there, which is the trait, the commandment, thou shalt honor your father and mother. That seems to be like it's in the wrong category. It should be between man and man, not between man and God. So our sages explain to us that there are 3 partners in the creation of man: father, mother, and God. The father and the mother provide each one different parts of the human construct. One provides the skin, the other provides the bones, the other provides everyone different components. But who gives the soul? The soul is from Hashem. The soul is from the Almighty. And God is it's the sort of the battery pack. You can build the whole machine, but if you don't have the actual engine, right, if you don't have the actual battery pack, it's not going to help, right? So we could be flesh and blood. We can have all the components. There's no soul. There's nothing going on. The soul that is infused by God is the source of our traits, right? So you ever see someone who's very, very calm demeanor? You see someone else who's very, very, easily angered, right? They have a bad temper, right? They grew up in the same traits that they need to perfect their life and their character. And this one was given the traits they need to perfect and accomplish what they need to accomplish. Every person is given the tools, the equipment that they need to perfect their traits. And that is the real goal that of what we're trying to accomplish in our day-to-day life, is to harness and get the traits that we possess, get them all together so we know exactly what to work on and what our struggles are going to be and where they're coming from and why we have them. Now, there's an escape to all of this. There's an escape to all this. What's the escape? The escape is, I'll tell you one of the major components of character perfection. Anybody know one of the major components of character perfection? Marriage. Right? It's very interesting. That marriage, people think that, marriage is supposed to be bliss, and everything is supposed to work. Bells and whistles, like when we got married, we walked and it was so romantic. We were on the beach and we were kicking up the water, and it was just, everything was roses and lilies. But then we get to the reality of marriage, and it's not always so rosy. You know why it's not so rosy? Because marriage is not just for the romance. Marriage is for work. Marriage is for developing your character. And anybody who doesn't understand that marriage is a playground for character development, or as they call it in the technology world, the sandbox, right, for character development, then they don't understand marriage. It says that a man is nothing without marriage. A man who's not married is nothing. You know why? Because he's not working on himself. Marriage means overcoming anger. It means being more kind. It means being more giving. It means giving more attention. It means being selfless. It means all of these fantastic traits that you're going to have to work on. It's very interesting. When I was a student in yeshiva, I went out to my grandfather, and we were working on our traits as one of the main functions that we had as students of yeshiva. In my grandfather's yeshiva was working on your character. So he started talking to my grandfather about working on arrogance. So he says, arrogance? You don't need to work on that till you get married. That your wife will take care of. Right? What does that mean? That means that when you get into that sandbox of character perfection, what is the purpose of your spouse? The purpose of your spouse is not to just say lovey-dovey things all day. Is that now you're getting into a world of work, a world of growth, a world of connection to make you a better person. So if we see marriage as just a place of bliss, you're probably going to end up miserable. But if we understand marriage as a place of work and character development, we'll have bliss. Yes?
Isn't that the same definition that we have for this world?
Absolutely. Of course it's the same definition.
That's why it's confusing for everyone.
It is very confusing because people don't understand what's going on. Right? If life was supposed to be so beautiful and perfect, why do I have challenges? Because who sold you that bill of goods? Right? Who told you that life was going to be, just a rose garden? We're here in life to work. Now, we spoke about happiness. A few weeks ago, we spoke about happiness. For 2 weeks, we spoke about happiness. You can see it on Facebook. You can find it on YouTube as well. The purpose of how do we get to happiness? We spoke about happiness. Is you have to, number one, appreciate everything that you have. But accomplishment, when you're able to accomplish something, when you're able to overcome anger, when you're able to become more kind and more giving and more patient, it gives you tremendous joy because you've accomplished something. You've become bigger than you were before. You've become much greater. You've grown as a human being, as a godlike image. Right? So, marriage is not just meant to be there for sake of companionship. Marriage is there to always, it says a woman was created to be an ezer kinegdo, a helper opposite him. Why can't you just be a helper? What does it need to opposite him? Because there's going to be someone who's going to always contrast those negative traits. Well, life was perfect before I got married. Right? And suddenly I get married. Well, guess what? Before you had the commitment, you didn't need to work on yourself. Now that you have commitment, now you're in the game. And the more you work, the more you grow together, the more love there'll be, the more joy there'll be. We were created by the Almighty, right? We are servants of the Almighty. He put us here, why? To be His image in this world. God says, I want you all, wherever you're going to be. You're going to be in Houston, Texas? Great. Go be an image of God. Go show the world what it should be like. How you should act. How you should behave. Show the world. With those traits, of course. Now, there are many people who will have those positive traits from childhood because their parents have given over, have transmitted positive traits. They taught them to be kind and polite, right? But that will only work that far. It'll work as far as they're still in the same realm as where their parents raised them. But once you take them out of that realm, you put them in a new situation that they weren't trained for by their parents. How do they react then? Right? Many times have no idea how to respond because they're not given those tools. That's why we're saying we're not trying to make robots out of our children to please and thank you. Would you like a glass of water? How about in every situation to be kind? Because we need to work on being selfless. We need to be you understand? Are we getting to the point here? Excellent. Okay. So, if everything that I have is from God, and everything I have is a gift from God, and I'm here to serve God, what right do I have to boast about the gifts I get from God? What right do I have? Okay, I'll give you a few examples. Okay, but before I want to I'll tell you a couple of amazing stories, and then, but I want to say just one more statement on this. A humble person is one who knows his place and doesn't think of himself greater than they really are. To be humble means you know your place. And knowing your place doesn't give you the right to show yourself as being bigger than everybody else. On the contrary, do you know that Moses, imagine the sun, right? So we think we're really great over here on planet Earth. We are so mighty, right? Oh, I have so much money. I have so many servants. I have such a big palace. I have so many cars. I have all these wonderful things. What happens if we just go about 5,000 feet from here, we get on our drone, and we go 5,000 feet, and we go towards the sun, closer to the sun, right? Right? So it may get very, very hot. The problem is you go another 5,000 feet, it'll start getting very, very cold. You go another 5,000 feet, you'll be 15,000 feet, you won't be able to breathe, okay? Because you don't have any oxygen up there. You go a little further up, it'll be ice cold. But you go even further, you'll start burning because you get so close to the sun, right? And you suddenly realize how insignificant you are, right? Not that we're insignificant. It's not to push us down. We're so capable on this earth. But relative to the sun, we suddenly realize that we're really microscopic, if any, relative to the sun. Now think of God who created the sun. Now the point is not for us to feel like we're little ants, that God doesn't really care. On the contrary, we'll talk plenty about Gadlut Ha'adam, the greatness of man, of what we can accomplish, to be God-like, even though we're so small. God has given us the ability to accomplish great things, notwithstanding how small we are or how big we are. But that does not give us a right to make ourselves rulers over other people. I'm great, but you're not. Right? And that's when we talk about arrogance and we talk about humility. Humility, when you see someone who's humble, is they don't suck the air out of the room. When someone is arrogant, they're the only one who wants to talk. When they laugh, ha, 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 everybody has to hear them laugh. Everybody has to hear them talk. You got to hear this story, right? And they suck the air out. Nobody can talk. When you have someone who's humble, you almost don't know they're there. Humility it's almost the opposite of what people think. I have a quote here from my grandfather. One who craves attention hasn't found himself yet. If you need yourself to be this big, you're that small. You haven't even found yourself. The more you've found, more you've identified in yourself, the less you need other people to recognize. And it goes exactly by measure. The more you need other people to recognize you, the less you know about yourself. The less you need people to know about you, the more you know yourself. Right? So there's an entire world that's within us that we have to learn to develop. There's an entire world of traits within us. And the more we identify that world, the less we need the encouragement, not the encouragement, the less we need the compliments from other people. There's some people, if they don't get that compliment, what are they going to do? They can't survive. Right? Why didn't they thank me? Because that world is a little empty inside. Right? But if the world is inside where that person knows, I'm doing this for the right reason. I am doing this because this is my challenge. I'm doing this because I need to overcome it. I don't need the recognition from someone else because I got my own world inside. Okay? Any questions so far? Yes?
Okay. Well, if Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you traits, and all that I can see, but say you have the traits, or a trait, and you've gotten rather good and proficient at it, but your life doesn't revolve around that trait. It's like, so what was the purpose of giving you the trait?
Okay, no, so there's no such thing as God giving you a trait that you're not going to need to use.
Okay.
Okay? I'll give you an example. Okay? There are some people who have jealousy as one of their primary traits, negative traits. Okay? There are other people who didn't get that file. Okay? The people who got that file are going to need to work on it. The people who didn't, it's not relevant. Not that they'll never have to just refresh and ensure that they don't have any elements of jealousy. But there's some people, jealousy just doesn't, it never occurred to them to be jealous of what someone else has. Okay? So, if you have that trait in positive or negative, it's there for a reason, for you to work on it. And if you don't have it, there's a reason for it as well. Now, we have a list. I'll give it out. I'll try. If someone can remind me, I'll print them out for everyone. This is from Rabbi Zelik Pliskin's book. It has about 230 positive traits and about hundreds of positive and negative traits. And I organized them all into one side positive, one side negative, and you can learn your own traits. You can examine, because there are hundreds of traits. I would say that everybody has approximately 10 or 15 positive, 10 or 15 negative primary traits that they need to work on during their lifetime. About. All right? You had a question?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to marriage.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you don't marry, we all come from different backgrounds.
Right.
Some are solid, and we judge, and some aren't. So what happens to those people? I mean, because they're born of people that really don't, they might not even get along, their mother and father. And
you're talking about people who grow up in a home that isn't solid.
Yeah, right.
How do they gain that strength? So first is, even people who do have a solid marriage are going to have what to work on. Or people who are growing up in a healthy environment, in a healthy, nurturing home, they're also going to have challenges. It's just, again, you'll get the extra added push that your parents hopefully guided you to your traits. Hopefully. Even if people grew up in a very, very healthy home, there's a strong likelihood that many people grew up without any identity of their own traits. And sometimes when people grow up in an unfortunate home where either the parents are always fighting, like you said, or they don't get along, or they don't give them the nurturing that they need, right? So sometimes they learn it from other places. They can learn it from a rabbi, from their teacher, from a book. They can, right? There are other ways to learn it, or they can come to this class.
Take it a step further.
Yeah.
Then they get married.
Mm-hmm.
Two different backgrounds. We're almost on a collision course.
That's correct, and that's why many marriages today are on a collision course before they even start.
But even if they don't even know how to work at it.
That's correct, because today we've been sold a bill of goods today. We've been sold what the media, what movies, what television always tells us, and they lived happily ever after. Right? They don't show you the day in, day out challenges. They don't show you the ins and outs of I think the most powerful, we're actually starting a new division of Torch in the next couple of months, which is going to be a closed division, and hopefully it slowly will expand it. But it's going to be for young Jewish couples, right? And I think we're working now on a curriculum. We're working on what we're going to do with these young couples. But I think one of the most helpful things that they can learn is how to have a healthy fight, right? Because people think, we fought. Are we getting divorced? Like, what's next? I thought marriage is always supposed to be, happy. And look, it's not happy because we're fighting. I asked a friend of mine who got divorced, lives in a different state. I asked him, he was married for 4 years. Did you guys fight a lot? He said, well, actually, we never fought. Not once.
No communication.
Guess what? They probably were never even married. I mean, they were married, they had a wedding, and they had an expensive wedding, and they had an orchestra, and they had flowers, and gowns, and the whole spiel, right? They had the whole thing. But they were never married. They were never intercommunicating with each other. It was more of like, what do you want for dinner? Oh, whatever. It wasn't like, that's the extent of the depth of the relationship. Do you want to go on vacation? Sure, why not? And it's sort of, we'll have camaraderie, we'll have conversations, but there's no becoming a better person. There's no facing challenges. It never got to a point of a relationship. It's like I always say, if you try, this is a common thing today. People's like, we are so in love. We even like the same type of music. We both like to dance, right? We both like the same spots for vacation. We both like hiking. Here's the guy and here's the girl, and they both like the same things. One likes one type of music, one likes another type of music. One likes spicy food, one likes mild food, one likes, So you know what? They learn to grow from their different. Compromise is a great tool, which is one of the things we mentioned when we had the grand opening here for the Torch Center. And we're going to get back right. My friends on Facebook, don't worry, we're getting back to humility. But you have, so in a halacha, you never see a compromise. So you have one opinion who says it should be 10 feet, and another one says it should be 5 feet. You know what? We're going to compromise 7.5 feet.
Only the Mussar.
Right? You never have that in halacha. In the Torah, you'll never find where the Talmud discusses, says, you know what, this opinion says that, we're just going to compromise. Except for mezuzah. Mezuzah, there's one opinion it should be completely vertical, and one opinion says it should be completely horizontal. And we all know, how do we put the mezuzah? On a slant. You know why? To show us that you're about to walk into your house, what's the first thing you see is your mezuzah. If you want to have success in your house, you're going to need compromise.
So-
All right? Compromise is the key. So like you're saying, yeah, they have to learn. You know what? I'm going to learn to like things that I'm not, because I grew up in my home. We never ate spice. I never had a spicy thing to eat till I got married. I kid you not. I never tasted spicy. I never even ate a jalapeno chip. Okay? The spiciest I've gotten was barbecue potato chips. Okay, which I still love. But I've never tasted, anything spicy. Suddenly I get married. My wife loves spicy food. I'm like, right? So I can either say, I don't want this in my house. Okay? Or you can learn. And this is just a microscopic of every area of life. Right? Everyone comes with different understandings, with different backgrounds, with different habits. And you know what? You learn to blend the two together to make something so much greater. Okay? Yes?
Rabbi, quick question on your premise that you need somebody to show you your negative traits.
No.
You know if you got anger issues.
But not everyone is as honest as you are.
Well, probably everybody's more honest than me. But I'm just saying that your premise was that your parents need to show you their children and I think a lot. At what age does that stop though? At what age if you're 15 or 16?
Again, it's not your parents' obligation. It'll give you a head start. When I went to learn, my grandfather, for example, would always talk about you have to identify those traits. But if you came to him and said, "Can you help me?" he'd say, "No." You got to do that homework yourself. Because what is the goal of identifying those traits? Getting to know yourself. So if I just give you the cheap way out, you're avoiding the most important part is getting to know yourself. My grandfather would always say, if you can't sit for 5 minutes on a bench and concentrate on one of your traits, you have no idea who you are. Yourself. My grandfather would send the students to go walk every night. To go walk by themselves. Go for a walk. So one night, one of the students comes running back to my grandfather's house, and he's white like a ghost. Right? He's so pale. And my grandfather says, "Is everything okay?" He says, "I went on the walk and I met somebody. I had no idea who he was." He says, "Who was he? Was he going to mug you? Was he going to hurt you?" He says, No. He says, "I had no idea who this person was." He says, What did he want from you?" He says, "What did he look like?" He says, "It was myself." He says, "Till now I've been living with a certain image of who I am. Suddenly I realized I'm a totally different person. I've been faking it all along." And we get into a certain habit of the way we talk, the way we do business, the way we treat other people. And sometimes it could be all a fake. But a person really has to get to know the true essence of who they are. That's the goal. The goal is to get to know who we are. And that's why at the end of tonight's class, we're going to be able to start measuring, where am I with humility? Where do I hold with this trait? Am I strong? Am I weak? Right? What do I need to work on to become more humble? Oh, I need to recognize that the gifts that God gave me are really gifts. They're not mine. Right? I may have been born with them, but God put them within me.
If you're humble, you would say you're humble.
That's not true. On the contrary, we'll see that in a minute. So here's the thing. Humility is knowing your traits, but knowing that they're from God.
And knowing who you are.
Exactly. So arrogance, you may also know your traits, but you think it's all you. So I think it's mine. So I can gloat and I can show the whole world, I happen to be the smartest guy in the room always, right? You have people who talk like that, right? They really believe that it's all them. But if they realize, 1 second, how can I take pride for something that's from the Almighty? He gave it to me. He can take it anytime he wants. And in that case, I don't have the right to be so arrogant. I don't have the right because it's his. Okay? So now, I'll share with you an amazing story. I've said this story so many times in different classes, but I don't think I've ever said them in the Mussar classes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the most amazing story about humility. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein the great leader of the greatest Torah scholar who lived in the United States ever. Passed away in 1986. He wrote books of response. People asked him questions, in the early 1940s and 50s and 60s, when you had the onset of technology and you had, elevators and, refrigerators and all of these things. So all the questions that came up with Shabbos, with the advancement of medicine, abortions, things like that, 4 or 5 pages response. Of Torah. So one Friday afternoon, a woman calls the house of Rabbi Feinstein. And a Friday afternoon, is the most hectic time in any Jewish home. Calls the house, and Rabbi Feinstein wasn't available at the moment, so one of his students picked up the phone. Hello, he hears the older woman on the other end of the line, and she says, "Can I please speak to Rabbi Feinstein?" So he says, "Well, Rabbi Feinstein is not available. How can I help you?" So she says, "Well, I wanted to know what time candlelighting is." And he doesn't have time for her question of when is candlelighting. Not to bother Rabbi Feinstein for that. He's a very busy man. He never said anything about calendars.
Just
Right?
answered the question.
Boom!
That's it.
Rabbi Feinstein, imagine this woman. Who knows who this woman even was? She opened up a Yellow Pages, perhaps, and said, "Oh, I need a rabbi. When is candlelighting?" She found Rabbi Feinstein. She called, "Hello, Rabbi Feinstein. What time is candlelighting?" Nothing. She never knew a thing about how great he was. He gave her the time of candlelighting. Never said a word about a Jewish calendar. "I'll send you a calendar." Nothing. You know why? Greatness of someone from God. This is also a creature of God. Let me give the time, the due respect. The CEO of the Agudath Israel of America helped thousands of all of these community issues that came up always in the Jewish community. He was always involved and always in the front. He was once invited by President John F. Kennedy to the White House. I believe it was President John F. Kennedy to the White House. And what was going on at the White House? The president asked, they were having some type of forum with all the religious leaders, and everyone had to present something, that the religion's perspective on whatever it was. From all the other book. And then the president imagine you're there, right? And of quotes is the rabbi. And you're that rabbi. Imagine you're on cloud. And long distance calls were very expensive. So as soon as he was done with the event, he gets on a train and goes back to New York City. comes home, and he's about to tell his family. Can you believe it? Can you believe what happened? I was by the president. He's about to tell them. As soon as he comes into the door of his house, his wife hears that garbage, please. Right? And he related this. You could be very, very successful in business, but once you start people who are around you who are going to be side swiped. Get back down to earth. Before other people. This will help a person learn from your student if you're not humble.